I got a good 15 minutes worth of comedy in under my belt here, let me tell you. I do. I would say I could do a Netflix special at this point in my career.
Just the trailer, or? Oh shit, I thought I was gonna lose the motor.
So we're going to be swapping the stock calipers for Brembos, and we're going to walk you guys through how to do it at home. You want to start with racking the car. You want to get all four wheels off the air, so I would probably choose a garage, not a driveway. So it's a flat surface, not an incline. Normally the way we do it is we start removing the brake fluid with the vacuum machine, but for the sake of the video, we're going to go ahead and use the oil pans on the floor just so you can capture the brake fluid as it's dripping out, and it'll allow it to be a cleaner, easier workspace, so you don't get it all over your hands, because brake fluid is really bad for you. It causes all kinds of skin disorders. It absorbs oxygen. Brake fluid absorbs oxygen, so when it goes into your skin, it really does really bad on it.
That disorder you have is from brake fluid.
It is. It causes really bad problems, so try not to get it on your hands if you could avoid it. We're going to start with taking the rear bolt from the actual brake line so it can start dripping off. It also stains paint. Brake fluid also stains paint, so try not to get it on your car's paint when you have it on your gloves. Have a handy shop rag. Brake fluid is one of the most underrated maintenance things that people try to avoid for some weird reason. You're supposed to change it every 30,000 miles for the reason stated before. It absorbs oxygen, so it stops the performance of the braking system, the braking power, and it also stops the anti-lock brake system to work to its full potential. So when you need to stop now and you go that extra 5 feet, most likely is because the oil it's got too much water in it. And again, we normally would use power tools for this, but for the sake of the video, we're gonna do it all by hand. The rear bolts and the Genesis are 17s in the front. So you'll need a 17 millimeter socket with a ratchet, or if you have one of these handy dandy tools, you can use this one. Now, when we swap the Brembos, or the stock ones for the Brembos, we also have to swap the rotors because they're slightly different size. However, disregard this. Rotors always have these two screws here. Those are used for the assembly line. A lot of people get worried when they're no longer in their car, but those are literally just for the assembly line. They do nothing to hold the rotor in place or none of that. We use them just so it could be easier to go back in. But if you lose one or maybe misplace it, don't worry about it. They're literally for the assembly line. With water hitting it, and sometimes it seizes itself to it. So you get a driver, and if you come in closer, you can see these rotate one way or the other. And so if you wanted to drive it in, you go this way and hit it in. If you want to remove it, go towards the left, and it'll help hammer it out basically. And it relieves it just that easy. Sometimes it's hot, but I find that when using the driver, the times that these get stripped out is because people normally want to put force on the driver while they're hammering it. You don't have to do that. As long as it's set into that left position to remove, the hammer itself will break it loose. But when you forcefully try to put pressure on the driver itself while hitting it, it seems to destroy the sides of it. And so just basically let the tool do the work. And sometimes they're on there so hard that it makes it really difficult to remove them. So in that scenario, just get a bigger hammer. And then same thing with the, sometimes the rotors also are stuck on there. So a lot of the times, I'm going to give you an example where I see non-master technicians. The habit that they want to do is they're going to want to hit it like that. It's got to be one blunt force should be able to break it free, no matter how much rust is in there. So you just grab it and it pops right out. Don't try to, you know, that's not enough. It has to be just a blunt force, one good one, and for most of the time it'll break it free. By the third one, it's completely out. So now we're going to install it, the new set. This manufacturer says this is the right, so we're going to go with the right front. There's plenty of arguments of should the slots be facing that way, which will bring air into the brake pad. Some say that this one, in this direction, it removes it, like just different arguments. But really, I think the truth of the matter is, do with whatever you like, or with what the manufacturer suggests. Excuse me. In this case, we're gonna go with what the manufacturer suggests. So we're putting the R, which is the right, for the front. Now these rotors can be purchased through our website. It's in the link below. Now we're going to drive it back in a little bit. You see how it just does its own. You don't have to put any kind of force forward with your hand. As long as it's in that position, it's going to want to go drive in that position. It slipped a little. So that was kind of a good example. So now we're back into tight. But truthfully, you don't even have to drive them in. As long as you take a screwdriver and tighten it like normal, just time, heat, and just the elements will make it difficult to remove afterwards. But now that we drove it in, when the customer goes to remove it, he's going to have a really bad time. And it's not seated properly. See, that one was loose even though I drove it in.
Yo, where'd you leave this guy's stuff? This is your boyfriend's here.
So even though I drove it in with the driver, you could see the inconsistencies of the hub with rust and stuff. It didn't drive it all the way, so when I spun it, I could tell that it was wobbly. So then I just tapped each little spot here. That one you do tap, you're not blunt force. Just tap, 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 tap. And then you can just see that these were still, they got immediately loose, which means we're now seated properly. So we tightened it some more, and now we're ready to install the calipers. All right, so we're gonna mount it up. We're gonna put the 17s back in the reverse fashion. You just gotta find the spot here, and not any Brembos will fit it, so you have to be careful. You gotta buy Genesis Coupe Brembos, or if you're buying them aftermarket, you just gotta make sure they're for the Genesis Coupe. So one thing I do want to mention, when installing Brembos, I know this is going to sound like obvious, but I can't tell you how many times we've had customers tell us that we installed the Brembos, but we can't seem to bleed them properly. The bleeders are on the top of the Brembos. We've seen people install them where they install these facing down, and it's almost impossible to bleed at that point. So just remember, this is the right front, bleeders up. Because I know, again, it sounds like it's a no-brainer type of thing for the regular car guy, but sometimes when someone wants to tackle a job and they really have no idea how the brake system works itself, they run into that issue where they put the left one on the front right and then the right one on the front left, and you could never bleed it. You'll never be able to bleed it. And again, I'm going to mention it just in the most simplistic way possible. It comes with 2 copper washers. One goes on before the fitting, and the second one goes between the fitting and the caliper itself. So there's one in between the fitting and the bolt washer. You put the next washer in here, and you're gonna go into this and set it. Now this is really important. This part's really important because if you try to use a ratchet before starting the threads, you can strip the threads. And if you strip the threads and you go in with it not centered properly, you will never be able to seal it. I don't care how you think you are, it will not seal. So now we're gonna tighten it. There's also a little slot where this little thingy, I don't know what it's called, little thingy goes into that groove. You just gotta make sure you do that or you'll bend it back and possibly leak it from the actual fitting. And the torque specification here is a well calibrated hand. And you're back in and ready to go. So now we're gonna bolt up these 17s. And again, we're doing it all by hand just so you guys can see that this job can be done in a garage. Also check in with the guys at our website because we almost always have a set of Brembos for used Brembos for sale. We almost always have 2-3 pairs at any given moment. So even if you live in New York, Iowa, Florida, wherever, we can ship them out to you, and you just follow this video and you should be able to do it yourself at home without hitting your head. These have to be on there really, really tight. As you can see, we're torquing them down. Alright, so we're gonna now show you how to install the actual brake pads on the Brembo. This one has the wrong hardware. Nick is over there trying to find us some new hardware. The tip of the pin is actually inside of the caliper. It's supposed to be about right here, sticking out of it. So someone had the wrong hardware on here, which doesn't really matter. We're gonna put new ones anyway. So you just tap on it slowly, and then once you tap it out using a punch and a hammer, you then put a little bit of pressure in it, and it should just slide out. Okay. And then the rear, once that's done, it should just come off. But if it doesn't, because of weathering or whatever, do the same process. Just give it a little tap. That's the locker right there. So this part squeezes on the caliper, not allowing it to go off while you're driving. Had a lot of pad left in it. A lot of rotors tend to make a brake pad squeak a lot, so it's really difficult to get the performance and quiet, so you almost have to pick which one's more important to you. The pad material itself has metal in it, and the quieter pad has a copper metal inside of it. This one has, I don't know what the hell this is actually, I can't really identify it, but you could see it. That's why I wet it so you could see it more, but it kind of faded it in. But if you get it really in close, you could see those little silver dots or metallic dots. Those are metal. It takes metal to stop the metal. The material just helps it absorb and dissipate the heat. I could show you another pad. This is an OE pad. The reason why the stock pads are really quiet is because they use copper in their material. You could kind of see it there, which will make for a quieter pad. So if the brake pad you're using has a copper in it, it's going to tend to be more quiet. versus a metallic or a semi-metallic pad, it's going to be a little bit more squeaky. On my car, my Genesis Coupe, I have Akibonos in the front. They're pretty noisy sometimes, depending on the heat, the cold, but the stopping power is there. So, and that's what I care about. I don't really care about the noise, the brake pad noise. If you ever drive in my car, it feels like you're entering the Earth's atmosphere because of all the movement. But I could stop on a dime. So that's a good example of what was in it versus what it actually takes. All right, so here we have, we're going back in with the brake pads. One of them has that brake sensor there. This one goes on the outside. If you attempt to put the one on the inside, like a normal OE vehicle caliper, it won't fit. It won't go in all the way. I'll show you. I heard some people bend them back to try to make them fit, but it doesn't line up. It doesn't allow it to line up. It hits in the back. So the sensor goes forward facing, and now it's a perfect fit. Just slide them in there. And remember, I know this is going to sound funny, but material faces the rotor. Material faces the rotor. We've had customers do that number there, and they said after they did their brakes, it sounds like something's grinding. Well, yeah, something was grinding. So now that the pads are in, we're now able to slip the pin in, and it should really be easy. It shouldn't be really difficult. If it's difficult, maybe there's debris on the pin, and you could just kind of clean it with a Scotch-Brite pad. Don't take too much material off. Now, the install part on this bracket here, you're gonna want to slip it under the tapered edge, and it has to land this tapered bottom has to be on the pad itself. This tapered edge has to be under the pin. So we're going to place it under the pin, and when you install the bottom pin, all you have to do is put a little pressure on this one, and it should just slide in. Now we're going to just tap it from the rear, and it should just walk in. Now this part you got to be really careful, because you could sometimes hit the Brembo and damage it. Some people don't care just because it's in the back. And do the same thing for the front. We're going to lock them in. And now this is a perfect example of where the tips are supposed to end after installation. Okay. Now if you look close over here, you're going to see that the pins themselves have a little groove. It's right here. One here and one here. You just have to make sure that when you're done, that the bracket fits within that groove to not allow it to slide back and forth or cause any additional noise and stuff like that. But that is how it's supposed to end up looking. So now that it's completely installed properly, we then are able to remove these little caps for the valves. There's two of them. The Brembos have two valves, whereas the regular normal caliper only has one, and you have to bleed them both. When we do the rear brakes, the only difference between the front and the rear is this shield here. Most of the time customers don't want to pay for a new shield and the labor to install it because it takes a lot more work. So we normally just cut it. Here at the shop we use a plasma cutter, and we just follow the line, the very edge, and then we remove this lip. So this way when we install the bigger rotor, it doesn't get in the way of the bracket. The bracket doesn't get in the way of the rotor, I should say. Now at home you could use a cutting wheel, you could use a Dremel. We've actually even used like a Sawzall, a small one, to cut the edge. And when you're coming around this way, when you get to the bottom port, there is the bottom of the control arm may get in the way, so you may have to go at an angle. If you're using the jigsaw or the Sawzall, you're gonna go on an angle this way, then hit it at an angle this way, and then file the remaining lip so it doesn't get in the way. Once you reach over here, you're done, and the caliper will fit like normal. Alrighty, so now we're gonna remove the rear caliper. Same thing, it's a 17. Now this is, if you don't have a socket, it's gonna be a little bit more difficult, so you most likely might need a socket. And by difficult, I mean it's just gonna take a little bit longer to do the strokes to remove them. But for the most part, once you break them loose, they're pretty simple. You'll see what I'm talking about the bottom one being a little bit more difficult to remove. The space is a little bit more limited, but it's still it's not hard. It's just takes smaller strokes to remove it. Not strokes, but just harder turns. Strokes. That's what it. He said strokes. So again, you use a driver to remove those screws, then you get a rotate it. Oh, this will be on there. You feel it pop up once it's broken loose. So here's a better angle of the shield. So you just have to cut right into that groove. And try not to leave a lip facing forward, because if you cut too close this way, it will hit the rotor and you're going to have a massive squeak. So you want to really get it on the right on that lip, so it could be a flat cut. We'll be right back. We're going to set up the plasma cutter and then show you how we plasma cut it. So here you can see we cut the bracket off. You could do a cleaner job. This was Nick. You also want to cut a little bit off the edges to allow for when you install the Brembo for it to be able to mount up perfectly right in it. The rest we're just going to continue like we showed you earlier, which is put the retaining screws in. And again, you want to make sure you're putting the R's on the one side and the L's on the other side. I've also seen them where they put the left one on this side and they don't match, and basically you have to swap the rotor back out again. And as far as the pad's concerned, excuse me, caliper, same thing. Make sure they're pointing up. Try to always start them by hand, so that you don't strip them. But the main one that strips is this guy here. Now if you were dealing with another car like an Elantra or Forte, it has the calipers mount on a bracket, and those are really easy to strip. But in this case we're dealing with the Brembo, so the only one that likes to go is this guy. So now we're going to go back in, bolt her down, and then after we put this all back together, we'll show you how to bleed them. And in this process, it's probably better to be a man. It goes faster for some weird reason with the right hand. Same thing, washer before and after the banjo bolt or the banjo fitting. You do have to start it by hand, and this one's a little trickier because you have to rotate it so that little that metal piece will go into the notch. There has to be a washer on both sides of the banjo fitting. And this one you got to be careful not to over torque, because it will strip. All right, same thing. It's supposed to stick out like that. That's the right hardware for it. It shouldn't take much of like brute force to remove it. If this part gets difficult to remove because the bracket is under, just push down on it So as you can see, right now it's a little difficult to remove. You push down on the little bracket and it makes it a little bit easier to remove. Promptly gets hard right there. And just wiggle her out. It's stuck. Here's where it binds in the back. And then this one should just be able to walk out after you tap it and get it off the sleeve. Again, you don't want to, you know, hit it too hard because you might hit the Brembo. The Genesis Coupe, for the rears, for some reason, if you get closer here, you could see the manufacturers leave a lot of the, I don't know if this is powder coat or what, but this, what we do, we shave these down, the sides, to allow it for it to be a smooth slide in. If not, it almost makes it impossible to install. So I'll show you after we grind it down. As you can see, we shaved down the powder coat off of it and just gave it a little file down there. If you don't have a grinder or a belt sander, you can also use a hand file. And as long as you get the black powder coat off, it should be a smooth slide in. Oh, maybe it's the right way. See how it just, I was fighting it earlier, now all of a sudden now it slides right in. You see, does no harm to it. We've been doing it for years. Some manufacturers you don't have to do it, others you do. Again, same thing. Tapered edge goes on the pad. Pin goes on this little edge. Perfect. Perfect. Once again, the pins have to stick out of it. And then we also have to make sure we're inside of this little groove here for the bracket. And everything looks like it's seating perfect, so we are done. After this, we are going to do the brake bleed procedure. And remember, there's 2 valves, not just one. And then once we're done, we'll show it to you. All right, so we're gonna start the bleeding procedure. We have this little mechanical thing here that we got from
Contraption?
this contraption here that we got from Amazon. I think it's about 50-60 bucks. It's not necessary, but we do it because when we do brake services, brake fluid exchanges, we run a lot of fluid through the system, try to get any water, any humidity, anything out of the lines. So we run a lot of brake fluid. However, if you don't use this and you're going to be topping it off and a buddy of yours is going to be helping you, someone has to keep monitoring this while you're doing the bleeding procedure. So let's get started. We're going to start with the furthest caliper from the master cylinder. And the reason we do that is because our forefathers did it before us, and their forefathers did it before them. So we are not, in fact, going to change that. So if you come closer, I can. All right. So we have our trusty friend in there. His name is Jesus, and he's going to start pumping. Hold. Oh, I heard that. Pump again. Hold. Okay, so you want to start with the outer, then go to the inner. Because even if it's a tiny amount of bubble, it will, the pedal will go to the floor. Even if it's a little amount. And when you break it free, this one was obviously difficult because we didn't pre-open it, but when you open it, you should hear like a quick, almost like a little tiny miniature blow-off valve. and you're hearing the air escaping. The mistake a lot of people do is that they pump the brakes violently. What happens when you have an open system and then you fill up with fluid, with fresh fluid in it, you have a lot of air trapped in it. So when you pump violently, it could make just a bunch of million bubbles.
Micro bubbles.
Micro bubbles. The problem that happens is that if you think you could have pressure in the brake pad, and then if you don't get all the micro bubbles, they will find each other and then cause a pedal going down to the floor. So we're going to continue. Pump.
Pump in.
Hold.
Hold.
I wish you caught that air noise. Did you?
I think I heard
Yeah,
it.
I heard it. Pump again.
Pump. Hold.
And once you get a stream, let me see if I can see them. Oh, there's hardly any micro bubbles. Once you get a stream of fluid when you break it loose, the odds are you're pretty much good. We do it two or three times, just depending on how the pedal feels. So we'll bleed this one, and then the final one's the closest to the master. And then we will continue that procedure until the pedal is down to the floor. You have to start the car, then press the brakes just to see how the pedal feels. Once it feels hard and normal, you're done. But if you don't close the valve fast enough, you could allow air to come back in. If whoever you're using to hold the brake pedal inside releases it before you close the valve. That's why if you see when I open them, it's really quick and go back in, just to allow only air that's trapped to be released. Pump.
Hold.
Wait a minute. That one had almost no air in it. Go, pump.
Pumping.
Hold.
Hold.
Oh, I heard it. Pump again.
Hold.
That one had micro bubbles. So because it had micro bubbles, we're gonna have to come back to this one to allow the bubbles to get close to each other. Okay, pump.
Hold.
I had a lot of fluid. Starting the inside on the front. Pump.
Hold.
That one's not bad. This one's scaring me. Pump.
Hold.
Alright, fluid. This is not remove the carnicle thing. You hold it?
Nope.
Ooh, I struck it rich. Pump. How's the pedal feel?
Feels a little bit stiffer.
A little bit stiffer?
It's not sinking to the floor.
Alright. Hold in. Hold in.
Yep.
Oh, wait, keep tightening it. Pump.
That one feels a lot better.
Yeah, the air was on this corner. Why do I keep doing that? I don't understand. No, it was that way.
Tightening.
Hey, I'm tightening it. Down has micro bubbles. That's weird. Pump.
Hold.
Oh, we're good.
There we go.
How does it feel? It should feel way better now.
Yeah, a lot better.
You all right? Turn it on. Turn it on and feel it. Pump.
Pumping.
Hold. Yeah, that was pure fluid. Pump.
Hold.
Pure fluid. This corner is the one that's scaring me. With that valve here.
Pump. Pump.
Hold.
Hold.
No. It held. Pump.
Hold.
That was solid. Solid fluid, no bubbles.
Pump. Hold.
Hold it. No bubbles.
Pump. Hold.
I heard a little, right? That looked pretty fluid.
All right, no micro bubbles.
No air. Are we done? Let's fill it up.
Hold.
Pure air. Pump.
Hold.
You should be back in. That should be good, yeah? That is how you do a caliper install. It's very easy, very meticulous though. And the more you take your time, the better and cleaner it comes out. So check it next time. There has been some vehicles that have been possessed here. However, I'm also a practicing theologian. So then I hit the car with the Domino Pizza.